Hello, my name is Ashley Sexton, and this is my wheelchair project video. The first question I have to answer was where the two places I went to in my wheelchair were and whether or not they were accommodating towards wheelchairs. The first place I went to was called Rust Belt Coffee. It's located in downtown Toledo. When I first initially went up to Rust Belt, I thought it was going to be really wheelchair appropriate because there's a ramp going up, so that kind of already eliminated the stairs. I soon came to realize that going up the ramp was much harder than I thought it was going to. I had Wade with me during the project, and we were both doing our wheelchairs together. Um, and he got through the door just fine, but when I tried going through the door, I definitely found some difficulty doing it. The ramp, I was nervous if I backed up too much, I was just gonna slide down the ramp because the top part of the ramp is only like a 5 foot by 5 foot square. It's not very big. And then also having to open the door and everything was pretty difficult. Luckily, the coffee shop only had the workers there working at the time that we went. And one of the workers saw me struggling a lot and ended up coming over and helping me with the door, even though Wade had just gotten in there just fine. But I just was special and I needed some help. Walmart was actually pretty wheelchair accommodative. I didn't really find any difficulties going through there. Going to the bathroom wasn't horrible. Maneuvering through the aisles wasn't awful. It was actually pretty easy kind of maneuvering through there. The only thing that was difficult was the people who kept asking us if we were actually injured, and we had to keep explaining that we were doing it for a project and we have to realize like what it's like to be in a wheelchair. But other than that, both of the places were actually pretty easy to maneuver. Once I got in the door at Rust Belt, it was easy to maneuver throughout. The aisles between all of the tables were pretty small, so certain areas I probably couldn't get into. So if it got busy there, it would definitely be harder. But other than that, going up to the counter and going into the bathroom wasn't horrible either. It was actually pretty easy compared to the initial opening the door. So to describe my home in very short terms, it's not wheelchair accessible at all. I think anyone would have difficulties if they had any like lower extremity dysfunction. It would definitely be hard to maneuver through my house. My front doorway has one step, but it's still a step, so I would still have to go up the step and then get into the doorway. So technically, there's two steps. My backyard has a patio right there, and then steps off the patio. There's steps going upstairs to the bathroom. There is a bathroom down here, but it's not big enough to put a wheelchair in. And I tried it, and my mom got angry at me for trying it. So, to say the least, my wheelchair was not very maneuverable throughout my house. It was pretty difficult trying to figure out where I would even go. I could just stay on my first floor level, and I mean I could get into the kitchen pretty fine. I could go around my island just fine, and going into the living room, into the family room was fine. Going into the bathroom was not fine, to say the least. The third question I had to answer was whether or not it was difficult to lift my wheelchair in and out of my car. I'm lucky enough to have a Dodge Journey, so if I just put my back seats down, it was pretty easy to put it in there, and it had enough room. I did notice when I had my back seats and my third row seats down, it liked to slide everywhere, so I had to bring my other seats back up so it didn't slide around so much. It kind of stayed in one area, but it was definitely not as easy as I thought it was going to be lifting it up and putting it into my car. I mean, it wasn't as difficult as I saw other people having with their cars because they had smaller cars. Luckily, I have a bigger one. But lifting it up and kind of maneuvering it over, doing the whole body mechanics thing was difficult because it's a wide square and it's not light. I mean, it's definitely not the heaviest thing I've lifted, but it's still kind of an awkward object with weight to put up into a car. But yeah, luckily I have a big car, so it wasn't as difficult as I saw other people having. The fourth question I have to answer was whether or not it was difficult rolling around the parking lot and rolling around in the restaurant or in the store or the aisleways. Maneuvering around the parking lot wasn't that hard. More so looking for potholes was probably the difficult part. Um, it was a lot easier because you had more open space, so you could kind of figure it out a little bit. Whereas in the aisles, you really have one shot to kind of turn, or you bump into something, or you just don't go in the direction that you're supposed to go in. So I would say it was more difficult to go through the aisles, even though it's more of a solid, like, even surface. You don't have as much area to work with uh, in the aisles versus as if you are in a parking lot. The biggest takeaway I have from this and the biggest insight that I had from this project was ramps are not as easy as people think that they are. Going up the ramp was so hard, and trying to keep my wheelchair from rolling backwards if I was alone was so hard. And then even having to open the door at the top and only having this little area to work with, it was awful. And that's a wheelchair accommodated like object. It's something that people usually do instead of steps, but it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to. I thought I was going to roll back and hit my head on something, or just, I don't know. It was definitely an insight for sure. I think this project will help me with treating my patients in the future, especially if they have to maneuver around things. Now I know it's more difficult to even just go into public places and do simple tasks. So especially opening doors. Opening doors, I did not think was going to be that big of a challenge going into the wheelchair project, if I'm being quite honest with you. I thought, there's the button, there's usually a button there, and there is not always a button there. And when there's not a button, it is a pain in the rear end to try and get through the doorway. I also felt like I was damaging people's doorways. I went through the coffee shop and I was like, I'm so sorry, I'm hurting your guys' doorway. I can't maneuver through here. I was trying to pull myself through, but the doorway wasn't very wide. So, I mean, even in places where it looks like it's accommodating, it could not be. So bringing awareness to my patients to where it may seem a certain type of way, but you never know. So practice with it, or get comfortable with it, or just be prepared for it, is definitely going to change. It's definitely a game changer within my patient treatment. Some feedback that I would have for this project would be possibly to assign places to people instead of having people choose their own. The problem that I ran into was I got a lot of insight with going to Rust Belt because it looked like it was accommodating to wheelchairs, but there was little things throughout that I would have never thought of that ended up being challenging. Whereas when I went to Walmart, it was more so of an awkward experience instead of like a learning experience. I didn't really get to challenge any like maneuverability or having to go through doorways and stuff. It was more so like an open door, go through the aisles, which were easy. I mean, the most difficult part I would say is to like maneuver around people, but everyone kind of got out of our way, especially because there was two of us. And they were just kind of like, why are these two people on wheelchairs in Walmart? But Rust Belt was definitely more of an eye-opener than going to Walmart. I found more challenges and I found more insight, a lot more insight than going to Walmart. It was just really awkward, if I'm being honest with you.